Hello, good evening. My name is Katherine Kaplan, and I work at SEB Housing. And this is the information session for the 3 affordable homes being made available at the residences of Elbow Pond in Plymouth, Massachusetts. So the purpose of this session is to give a little bit of background information on the homes, the application itself, the eligibility and lottery process, and also what to expect after the lottery. So if you have any questions during the session, there is a chat box to the right of where you see me. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and chat. You can go ahead and type those questions into the chat box. I'm going to type something in there now so that you can see the area that I'm referring to. So it's right there. And we also have a conference call that's running concurrently during this information session. If you prefer to join by phone, you can do that. And I'm going to put the phone number and the code in the chat box just in case you want to connect that way instead. So this is a live session. Obviously, it's going to be saved on YouTube once it concludes. So if you happen to be watching this after the fact, so a week from now or a few days from now, you can connect to SEB Housing after the fact if you have questions. The chat will not be working at that point, so you can email us at info@sebhousing.com, or you can call us, and the number and the email are both in the chat box for you now. So email is the quickest way to get in touch with us, but if you prefer calling, that is perfectly fine as well. So just a little bit of background on who we are. SEB Housing, we are a off-site affordable housing consultant agency, and we're hired by the developer to market the affordable home, conduct the information session, collect and review applications to determine eligibility, and run the lottery eventually. So we're not on site at the development, so we haven't seen these homes in person. And so the initial phases of this process, we will be your main contact, SEB Housing, as you work through the lottery application process. But later on in the home buying process, you'd be more in touch with the owner themselves when you move towards purchasing the home. So there's 2 broad steps in this process to buying an affordable home. The first is applying for the affordable housing program itself. And you'll be in touch, like I said, with the SEB Housing for most of that time period. And we can answer any questions you have on the program itself. We'll review your application and the supporting documents, income documents, and all of that you provide to us along with your application. And then if you're eligible, you'll be entered into the lottery and given a position on the waiting list. Step 2 involves the process of actually reserving the home and the whole home buying process. And your opportunity to be able to own one of these homes is going to depend on your placement on the wait list following the lottery. So the information packet for this opportunity is the document that I'm going to be reviewing for the most part during this presentation tonight. And it lists an approximate timeline for what you can expect, how long it's going to take to get a mortgage pre-approval, how long it's going to take SEB Housing to review your application and all of that. So if you haven't already, I encourage you to go to our website, sebhousing.com, and I'll put that in the chat box as well just so you can have it. But if you go to our website, you can click on affordable housing opportunities and select I want to buy. Once you do that, you'll see residences at Elbow Pond is one of your choices, and that is going to give you more specific information about these 3 homes in Plymouth. So when you're at that page, there's also a downloadable version of the application, the deed rider, and the information packet that I'm going to go through tonight. So we're not going to have time to cover everything in the information packet, but I'm going to be reviewing the main points. So if you're watching this after the fact, you can kind of get a little more information on what you're reading. So it's recommended that you review that packet even if you've watched this session, because there's a lot of information in there that's going to be helpful to you as a first-time home buyer potentially. So if you choose to apply for this these affordable homes at the residences of Elbow Pond in Plymouth, you're going to need to complete that lottery application. And you can submit it to us one of a few ways. You can email it to us, you can scan it to us and as an attachment, you can fax it. Our fax number is listed on the first page of the application. You can send it by regular mail, or you can drop it in our 24-hour drop box located at our office in Needham. So our office in Needham is located at 257 Hillside Ave, and the drop box is located on the left of the building. We check it each day. So you can pick whichever of those ways is easiest for you to get the application and other supporting materials to us. We just encourage you to get your application in early if you're interested in this opportunity. It's a fairly lengthy application, as you're going to see. It's about 20 pages, a little bit more if you happen to be self-employed, because there's some other documentation that needs to be submitted in that case. And then there's a lot of supporting documentation required as well, which we're going to go through this evening. So along with your lottery application and supporting documentation, since this is a homeowner, you would be buying a home if you were interested in this opportunity, you also need to submit a mortgage pre-approval, which we're going to cover a little bit more in depth in a few minutes. But getting that pre-approval could take you some time. So if you're interested in this opportunity, we recommend that you begin that process as soon as possible, since the application deadline is coming up. So you're going to want to make sure you find a lender and get that pre-approval. So applications for this opportunity are due by 2 p.m. on January 10th. So it's coming up in about 3 weeks. And the applications must be delivered or postmarked by that date. You don't need to be a resident of the town of Plymouth to be eligible for these home ownership opportunities. So let's talk about a little bit of background on the homes themselves. So these are 3-bedroom homes located in South Plymouth within a new subdivision of about 60 homes called the Residences at Elbow Pond. The neighborhood is located close to Route 3, or close to Exit 2 as well, 45 miles south of Boston and just 2 miles north of the Sagamore Bridge and the Cape Cod Canal. Each affordable home contains about 1,750 square feet, or actually it ranges. Each affordable home is between 1,750 square feet and 2,016 square feet, and has 3 bedrooms and 1.5 bathrooms. All of the affordable homes contain an unfinished basement and a 2-car garage, and they all have 2-zone forced hot air heating system, an instant hot water heater, washer dryer hookup. The kitchens feature quality appliances, including a stove, microwave, and dishwasher, and the exterior of the home is low maintenance vinyl siding and trim. The homeowner is going to be responsible for taxes, insurance, and all home utilities and maintenance. And there's a $50 per month fee, which covers open space taxes, and snow plowing. So this home is being sold for $330,500, and it's priced significantly below what brand new market rate homes would be going for in the area or in that development. So it's a great opportunity. And since these homes are being sold for affordable prices, the opportunity is only being made available to households who have incomes below a certain amount, so below 80% of the area median income, and that's referred to as AMI. And the AMI amounts are set by HUD, so the Department of Housing and Urban Development, every year. So each spring they change, and the Plymouth, although it's a little bit outside of Boston, falls within the Boston metro area, excuse me, for these area median incomes. Since they're affordable homes, each of these homes is going to have what is called a deed rider that is filed along with the deed at the time of purchase. This ensures that the homes are going to remain affordable in the future, even if the future buyers or future owners eventually choose to sell them. So just a quick overview of what the deed rider entails. These are kind of the three main points of a deed rider, or the things that are maybe most important to take away. A deed rider limits the amount for which you'd be able to resell the property. So this opportunity really isn't for you if you're looking to buy the house and then flip it and sell it in a few years, or have an investment property. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to sell the property eventually and make a profit, or or have some sort of return on investment, but you shouldn't be expecting to have the price appreciate quite as much as homes that are selling for market rate. There's a formula for the resale price that is also a function of AMI. So there's an example of how the resale price is calculated on the last page of the info pack. The second part of the deed rider that you might want to take a look at or be conscious of is these homes must be your primary residence. They generally cannot be rented out as an Airbnb or an investment property. The third is if you would like to refinance or make capital improvements, such as a new roof in the future, DHCD would need to approve that. So DHCD is the Department of Housing and Community Development. You would need to ask for their approval as the monitoring agent for this affordable unit if you were looking to do anything like that. Now, these are brand new homes, so it's not expected that you'd be needing a new roof or anything like that anytime in the near future, which is good. So I mentioned that you need a mortgage pre-approval. It's required to be submitted along with your lottery application and all of your income, asset, and tax documentation that is required along with the application. So we suggest that after you review the information packet, you just make a copy or tear out page 10, because that has all of the pre-approval standards that are going to be necessary for this, the loan that you will need to secure, and the mortgage you'll need to have. And you really want to just make your lender or your bank aware of what these standards are, because you don't want to go with a lender who is going to be backing out because some of these stipulations are problematic for them. You also want to bring them a copy of the deed rider, which I told you is available on the listing on our website as well for this opportunity, because there's also information in there that can be problematic for some lenders. And certain loans will not accept the terms of the deed rider that we just spoke about. For example, the loan needs to have a fixed interest rate throughout the term of the mortgage. It can't be an FHA or VA loan, since those types of loans do not accept the deed restriction that we spoke about. So you don't want to be in a situation where pre-approval is granted, but then when it comes time to actually secure the mortgage, you're not able to do that because the bank or the lender maybe wasn't familiar with affordable housing because they didn't have the copy of these standards. So page 10 is something that you want to give to them, and also the deed rider. So you can select any bank or lender that you would like, but we just strongly recommend that you choose someone who has affordable housing knowledge. So there's a link that's included on page 10 of the info pack, and it's going to direct you to the Massachusetts Housing Partnership website, which is a great resource for you to find lenders that are familiar with affordable housing. So take a look at that. And the mortgage pre-approval standards also state that a down payment of 3% of the purchase price is required. So you are able to finance 97% of the purchase price, but 3% will need to come as a down payment, half of which must be from your own funds. So 1.5% of the purchase price will need to come out of your funds. And if someone is generous enough to gift you with 1.5%, that's great, but their contribution to the down payment cannot be more than 1.5%. So the eligibility requirements for the affordable housing program, there's 4 main eligibility criteria that I'm going to go through. We're going to talk about the first 2 in a lot more detail after the fact as well. So they start on page 4 of the info pack, and the first is that everyone in the household must qualify as what's called a first-time home buyer. There are exceptions to this, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, but even households who qualify as a first-time home buyer or qualify for an exception to the first-time home buyer criteria, I should say, would need to sell their current home prior to purchasing an affordable home at Elbow Pond. The second eligibility criteria is that households' income and assets must be below the maximum allowable income and asset limits. And we're going to talk a lot more about that. The third criteria is that households must be pre-approved for a mortgage, which we talked about. And the fourth is that households cannot have a financial interest in the development or be a related party to the developer or owner. The homes are being offered by Elbow Pond LLC, so if you work for them or if you are related to them in some way or to the owner of that LLC, you may not be eligible for this lottery. And there's a question on the application that will ask you to disclose that. So we're going to circle back to the first eligibility criteria, which is explaining more about what a first-time home buyer is. So all household members are considered first-time home buyers if they have not, within the last 3 years, owned a home. And this would include through joint ownership. So if you and a former partner owned a home and you were on the deed, you would have been an owner of that home. There are 5 exceptions to the first-time home buyer rule in the info packet. We're going to talk about 3 of them right now that come up the most often. And the first is someone that's referred to as a displaced homemaker. So that person would not have been working outside of the household for many years. They would have owned a home with their partner or spouse at some point recently, but they're no longer own that home because potentially a separation or a divorce recently. The second exception is a single parent with at least joint custody of 1 or more children, or someone who is pregnant and is now being displaced and looking for a home to buy. The third exception are age-qualified households. So if there was a member of the household who is 55 or older and they had owned a property within the last 3 years, they could potentially be a exception. But like I said, if any of these exceptions apply to you, you would have to make sure that your current home is sold before you're able to buy this affordable home. You can't be owning 2 homes at the same time. So the current home would need to be sold before you're able to purchase this one. So the second main eligibility criteria for the affordable housing program is the income limits. So since it's an affordable housing opportunity, the homes are being made available at a price that is much lower than the market rate homes within the development. So because of that, your income needs to be at or below the 80% of the area median income that we spoke about, and the maximum limits are set by household size. So it includes everyone who will be living in the unit with you. They are listed, the max amounts are listed on page 4 of the application, of the information pack. And they're on the website and the application. So you don't need to write these down or anything like that. They'll be available for you, but I will say them right now. So if you're a one-person household, your total household income would need to be under $70,750 in order to be eligible to buy one of these homes. If you're a two-person household, the maximum is $80,850. If you're a three-person household, the maximum is $90,950. If you're a four-person household, the maximum is $101,050. A five-person household, $109,150. And if you're a six-person household, the maximum income limit for this program is $117,250. So all households are going to be required to submit supporting documentation to confirm their income and asset amounts. And the required documents really vary depending on your source of income. But generally, if you're working, you have an employer, we're going to be asking, for example, for your 5 most recent pay stubs, consecutive pay stubs, copies of your most recent 3 months worth of bank statements, and copies of your federal tax returns for the last 3 years. I'm also going to give you a basic overview of how we calculate your income, because it's really not one size fits all. We count it as a projection of what your household income is projected to be for the next 12 months, for the next year. And all income for household members is included. So this includes bonuses and overtime that you might be making at your job. The only exception in terms of income that we do not count is wage income from minors. So if you have a 16-year-old who's working, we're not going to be counting any of those wages that they might be bringing into the household when determining your eligibility. The second exception to that is dependent full-time students who are working. We would only be counting the first $480 of their wages. So most of it would be excluded. And so we must count gross income. And that means before taxes. We understand that obviously you're not taking home that amount. Your net pay after, health insurance and all kinds of taxes and deductions might be much lower than the gross income, but the program dictates that we need to count the gross income of applicants. And so, like I said, this process isn't one size fits all because there's so many people who have varying circumstances when it comes to their income. So while some applicants might have a weekly salary that is consistent throughout the year and they're making the same amount every week or bi-weekly, there are other people who are working seasonally or they're self-employed. And in those circumstances, we might need to look further back in the past in order to project what that family would make in the next 12 months. So specifically for applicants who are self-employed, you're going to need to complete a profit and loss statement, which is going to detail the expenses of your business and all of that, and we will take those into account. For households who are not self-employed, though, it is always going to be the gross income that we count. So we'd be working with you in order to determine how to best calculate your income depending on your specific circumstances. In general, any income that you have been making, we're going to assume that you will continue to make it going forward unless we have definitive documentation stating that you will no longer be earning that income source. So, for example, that might be a written letter from your employer stating, we're absolutely not going to have overtime or bonuses in the next year. It's not going to be possible. That might be helpful to us. And but we're not permitted to accept, statements from applicants saying that, I made $80,000 last year, but I'm planning to cut down significantly on my hours this year, and I will only be making $50,000. We would still need to count $80,000 in that case as your total household income, unless we have a written statement from the employer stating otherwise. So the sources of income that we do count, which is pretty much everything, but it's listed on the application. I suggest you take a look at that table just to read through some of them. because it's not just, wage income. It's really most incomes coming into the household. You'll see wages there, self-employment, Social Security, disability payments, child support, alimony, retirement distributions if you are drawing down from your retirement accounts, unemployment compensation, workman's comp, pension payments, even periodic payments from friends or family if they're supporting your household on a regular basis. That would need to be disclosed, and we would be asking for that family member to confirm with a written statement of the amount and frequency of those payments. And then any assets that are generating income, we need to count the amount that's generated as income towards your eligibility amount. There are no minimum income households requirements for this program, but you do want to keep in mind that in order to qualify for a mortgage, the lender is going to have some income requirements, I'm sure. Assets. So households may not have more than $75,000 total in assets to be eligible for this affordable housing program at the time of application. So the asset amount includes funds that you have saved up maybe for a future down payment. That would be cash in savings or checking accounts, CDs, the net value of stocks or retirement accounts, bonds, even money that you have in Venmo and PayPal. We're going to be asking for statements because, it's not traditionally what you're thinking of when you think of assets, but those accounts are counted as assets for this program. So you might think it's a little strange that we count the amount that you have in retirement. Maybe if you're 30 or 40 years old, you're not thinking of retiring anytime soon, you're not going to be touching that money. And that's true, obviously, but we are required to count that, the net, the post-penalty amount, the net cash value of those retirement accounts. I think the reason behind that is likely because, you are able to access those accounts, even if you don't plan on it or there would be a large penalty, you could draw down from them. So keep that in mind when you're filling out the asset portion of the application. Also, if you happen to have a family member who's being generous enough to help you with the down payment and they're going to gift you part of that down payment, that is considered an asset. So you would need to disclose that on your application as well. We do not count assets, personal assets, such as jewelry, car collections, things like that, if you happen to have any of that. Okay, so for lottery eligibility, as mentioned earlier, if you're interested, we want you to apply as soon as possible to get the process started. There is a lot of information that is required of applicants, not only the application itself, but the mortgage pre-approval and all of the supporting income, asset, and tax documentation that you're going to need to submit to us. Might take you some time to gather. So you want to get started on that as soon as possible. SEB Housing will then review your application and contact you if any information is missing or appears incorrect. You're going to have a chance to get that updated application into us. It's not as if you submit something and if it's not perfect on the first try, you don't have another chance. That's not at all what we're looking to do here. But most applicants do not submit a 100% complete application on the first try. There's a couple reasons for that. One is just because there's a lot of information that's requested for this program, but also even if you do supply everything on the first try, sometimes you're submitting information that is actually going to bring up more questions for us, and that might be a bank statement that is showing us you have deposits that maybe we're not sure what they are. We may need to ask more questions about that. So that's completely fine. If you submit an application that is not complete on the first try, you will be given additional time to supply the information we need. So this is really why we encourage people to get their application in as soon as possible so you can begin the process early. So if you're found eligible for the lottery, Your household, you'll be sent a lottery application number. That'll be sent by email unless you do not have an email address, and it'll be sent to you by regular mail. The application number is going to be in the form of, the format, I should say, of A dot and then 3 or 4 numbers. And this is just a random number that is going to be drawn in place of your name during the lottery itself. So it's meant to be anonymous. We don't want to be calling out names during the actual lottery. It's not a ranking of any sort. It just corresponds to when your application came in. So if you were the first person to apply for this opportunity, your number might be A.001. On your application, you're also going to have indicated if you are a type 1, 2, or 3 household. And you can see more about what the types, what type you might fall under on page 8 of the info pack. But what you want to keep in mind is type 1 and type 2 households can apply for this. Anyone can apply for this opportunity. But since it's these are 3-bedroom homes, type 3 households are going to be ahead of type 1 and 2 households when we establish the wait list after the lottery. So for reference, since the type 3 households will have priority, you should know that if you are a household with 4, 5, or 6 people, you are a type 3 household. You'll see that in the info pack. And certain 3-person households as well are considered type 3 households. So if you're a single person applying for this, or if you have 2 people in your household, you can apply for this, and you may very well be able to submit an application and buy one of these units, but we just don't know until we see how many people apply for the opportunity and establish the wait list. So the lottery application deadline is January 10th at 2 p.m., like we said, and the lottery itself is going to be held virtually, similar to this format, on January 31st, 2022 at 6 p.m. And we'll create the wait list shortly after the lottery takes place. So the top households are going to be moving forward in the process, and the SEB Housing will be reaching out to them following the lottery and the wait list being created. During the lottery itself, like I said, it's going to be the same format as this. It will be a YouTube live session, and numbers will be drawn from a box held up to the screen so everybody can see what was drawn and recorded. Every lottery number is going to be picked and drawn. When we think of lotteries, we sometimes think, there's only one winner. Whoever was drawn first is going to be able to purchase the property, or in this case, the first 3 people, but that just isn't the case. The lottery is really just being held to, assist us in creating or establishing the wait lists. So if a type 1 or type 2 household is drawn first in the lottery, they're still going to be behind all of the type 3 households on the wait list once those are established. And oftentimes there's people who are households who are on these wait lists who ultimately decide not to buy the units or are found ineligible. So if you say there's 10 households on the wait list and you're number 9, you don't want to lose hope at not being able to buy this home, because that may not be the case. So following the lottery, we do our best to get the results and the wait list out to all the applicants as soon as possible. You can normally expect to have that in your inbox by sometime the next morning. And when you review that email, when you are looking at the wait list and you're looking for your lottery number that was previously sent to you, you can see where you fall on the wait list and have a better idea of whether or not you're going to be able to move forward with this opportunity, or if you're going to have to wait a little while because maybe you're further down in that wait list. So if you're among the top households on the wait list, following the lottery, our next step is to send your file to the Department of Housing and Community Development, DHCD, that I mentioned before. They're going to do a file review to give us the green light as to whether or not your household appears to be eligible to move forward. And once DHCD has approved your application, your process in this home buying process really becomes a lot more similar to if you were purchasing a market rate home. And I do want to mention, as you're going through the home buying process, you can hire an attorney if you see fit to assist you in navigating through the process. We really encourage this. It's a huge decision for anyone to be buying a home, and it might be the smart thing to do for you. So you definitely are able to do that at any point to make sure that you understand the process and really just make sure you're represented going through all of these steps. So once DHCD has approved the application, you're going to be put in touch with the owner and the developer. So this is when you're going to start to have more communication with them. And you will obviously tour the home. If you are still interested in it, you would be reserving one of the homes. If you're the first person on the wait list, you'd be able to have your pick at the 3 homes. Maybe you like the location of one of them better than another. And if you're the first person on there and nobody else has reserved any of the other homes, then you'd be able to have your first pick at the 3. You're going to reserve a home. When you put in the unit reservation, you are at that point going to have to put down a $500 refundable deposit. That will be required. And then after reserving the home, you will have about 10 business days to sign a purchase and sale agreement and place the required deposit, which is 1.5% of the sales price minus the $500 that you've already paid when you reserved the unit. So your purchase and sale agreement is actually going to list your closing date. And as you probably know, your closing date is the final step in the home buying process. So you're kind of nearing the finish line once you sign the purchase and sale agreement. So once the P&S is signed, you will then need to go back to the bank or lender who issued your mortgage pre-approval, and you're going to obtain your mortgage commitment at that point. So this process varies a little bit depending on the lender, but generally they're going to want to review all of the documentation that you have signed and amassed to this point, which would be your purchase and sale agreement, the deed rider. They're also going to do an appraisal of the home at that point. Once you have your mortgage commitment, throughout this whole process, you should be updating the staff person at SCB Housing that you're working with to make sure that they have all of the documentation that you have gotten as you move through the process. You're going to be talking to someone at SCB before your closing date as well, because we do need to do a final review of your file before you close. And that is because any applicant who is buying an affordable home needs to remain eligible for the affordable housing program all the way through closing. So about 3 to 4 weeks prior to your closing date, the final review will be conducted. And at that point, we'll be asking for potentially updated pay stubs, bank statements. We're going to want to see that mortgage commitment letter. And so at that point, SCB Housing will be doing our final review, and then DHCD also needs to do this. So the state is going to do their final review as well at that point. So if you maintain eligibility, your household is still under that income limit, you're going to move towards closing. Once you've closed on the home, you can move right in. There's not going to be any future income or asset eligibility reviews. So you're really finished with the affordability eligibility process at that point, and hopefully you enjoy the home for many years to come. And the only thing that you need to keep in mind is when you sell the home, that deed rider and all of those all of the stipulations that were in there, you just need to keep that in mind if you're making improvements to the home as you go on. So that covers really most of what I wanted to get through in the information packet. Again, you can find the lottery application for these 3-bedroom homes in South Plymouth at the residences at Elbow Pond on our website. Information packet is there along with the deed rider. I'll stick around just in case there's anyone who has a question. And if there's no other questions now, and you're watching this after the fact, we have it here in the chat box, but info@sebhousing.com would be the best way to get in touch with us with questions after today. And our phone number is up there as well. All right, if there's no other questions, I hope you have a great night and good luck in the lottery. Thank you.